So, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Steve Chiama, and I'm the franchise owner for Action Coach in Fairfax, Virginia. And I'm your host today of the Business Spotlight podcast. And today I have the pleasure to introduce Greg Hittelman, the founder and CEO of Strategy Media, as my guest. Today we're going to talk about Greg's business, his journey into business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to build, own, and operate a business. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when a new show like this drops. So Greg, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. And if you would, please share a little bit of background about who you are and tell us a little bit about your business, if you would.
First of all, Steve, thanks so much for the opportunity to join you. I've watched your show and got so much great advice and interesting folks that you've been
Mhm.
interviewing in so many different sectors and categories of work. So this should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. A little bit about me. I help leaders at crossroads of risk and opportunity.
Mhm.
So at my advisory firm, Strategy Media, we work with CEOs, founders, change makers from tech to climate to entertainment and beyond.
Mhm.
And the work is really diverse.
I'll
Uh,
bet.
I
Yeah.
was, yeah, I was on the founding leadership team with George Clooney, building the comms program for his global investigative organization on Capitol Hill. I've helped, and my teams have helped push groundbreaking laws through Congress with this is fun with bipartisan persuasion. So we actually that sounds very exotic these days, but
Yes,
it's
it does.
possible. And recently advised C-suite at one of the world's biggest brands, navigating the seismic tariff and trade shifts. I've personally prepped everyone from celebrities to CEOs on keynote speeches and media interviews, and also a lot of parachuting into crisis,
Yeah.
security threats, litigation, reputational issues.
Hmm.
Basically, when the what hits the fan,
Mm.
uh, jumping in and helping finding a way through. And I guess the constant in my work is generally it's complex problems
Hmm.
and high stakes. That's generally where I find myself, and I love it.
Good. Good. That's a key component right there. You got to love it. You got to really enjoy the game because it can get challenging at times. And you're dealing with an interesting pool of people that can make things challenging very easily. Awesome. Awesome. Let's talk first a little bit about the structure of the business that you've got. Um, a lot of people think in terms of solo startup. Some people think in terms of venture capital. Some people think in terms of outside investors. Where are you in this game? How are you structured?
I'd say I'm at the farthest end away from brick and mortar. So I have a very expansive global network of experts and partners and allies and different kinds of experts that I pull together for different kinds of projects, depending on
Hmm.
the scope and specificity of the particular challenges. And that can range from people who are experts in public relations
Right.
to domain experts and different kinds of sector experts. I bring in all kinds of. Sometimes I've even brought in um, whole teams from other firms to work under my firm on different kinds of projects. So it's
Okay.
it's it's very much of a flex company, and sometimes in my work, it's just me directly coming in to
Hmm.
consult, usually at leadership level.
I'm going to speculate that a lot of your people are on contract or maybe 1099 or
Yeah,
yeah, okay. So as needed rather than on a continuous need, continuous.
yeah. which is really what works for my business
Yep.
because my clientele is really eclectic.
Hmm.
And if I had just a fixed team, it would
Hmm.
really be hard to best serve those clients.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And you're a service business is different from a capital, something with requiring a lot of capital. Brick and mortar starting to be where that can start, but not a lot of equipment, just a lot of different intellectual needs at different times. Cool, cool. Um, how are there other people in your industry that you compete with?
Yeah, and so I would say that there are, different kinds of advisory and consultancies,
Hmm.
everything from, you know, public relations firms
Right.
to strategic communications advisors to different kinds of consultancies and other kinds of advertising or communication or marketing firms.
How do you stand out in that kind of an environment where you can all be, in a way, be drawing on the same resources? How do you stand out? How do you make yourself unique and have a way to attract people to buy from you rather than from somebody else?
Yeah. Well, a lot of my business really is word of mouth. So
Hmm.
a differentiator is just delivering for my
Hmm.
clients
Okay.
and, consistently bringing expertise and value
Hmm.
to those projects. And as long as we can continue to do that, I think that's the competitive. It's not really a competitive advantage. It's like the special sauce to make the company successful.
Okay.
And then the other piece of it is, um, especially in relation to like large consultancy firms and public
Hmm.
relations firms,
Hmm.
a lot of times the functional structure of those groups, they can deliver really great value
Hmm.
to certain types of projects, but sometimes I've heard this repeatedly. Uh, they get sold in to a client with VP and above level expertise, and then they kind of wind up with account management at a more associate level.
Hmm.
And in my work, it's only top level experts who are
Hmm.
working with the client.
Hmm. What is one thing you wish more people knew about your business? And kind of the behind the scenes thought here is how would you attract more, um, get more connections in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that well, I'll take one example. So
Hmm.
in the realm of our crisis work, there are a lot of companies and enterprises out there that think that they're prepared for major crisis,
Hmm.
but frankly are not.
Hmm.
And I would say that the common example is, you know, maybe a startup company that is,
Hmm.
pretty well funded. Maybe they're somewhere between Series A and Series B,
Hmm.
or maybe C, and they're, they're really focused on business viability,
Hmm.
and they haven't really spent the time to think about, wow, uh, what could go wrong? And they
Yeah.
they think that their operating environment is um, a pretty clear trajectory, when in
Hmm.
fact, in time, they're going to be, getting the cycle of learning where they see that that's really not the case, that business is always dynamic, that
Yeah.
ecosystems are always changing, that the challenges often come out of the blue. Black swans and unknown
Hmm.
unknowns are real.
Hmm.
And in fact, almost every successful organization has to navigate through probably multiple major crises at different points in
Hmm.
their evolution. And so I think that that's a key when they're young, upstart companies, and they think, oh, speed dial to my legal team is all I need, or we have a PR firm, that we can reach out to if
Hmm.
and when needed. But for crisis, really the you know being prepared is going to be the number one way that you navigate through
Mm.
crisis in a graceful, agile, and successful way. And the difference between, bringing someone in who isn't familiar with your organization hasn't already worked with you to think through potential problems means that the time cycle of solving those problems is going to be a lot longer.
Is that something you can help these startups anticipate? Is what areas they should be preparing and how they should be preparing these plans so that they have an idea of when this happens, default there.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of that,
Hmm.
creating very simple, actionable protocols and systems, and
Good,
then doing some run-throughs to develop organizational muscle memory, so that
good.
when the time comes, they're you know well positioned to be agile
Hmm.
in navigating. And the other advantage of it is that in most crises, if it really hits you like a semi truck at 100 miles an hour, you're just spend a bit of time just in shock
Hmm.
and even just figuring out some of the basics of like who's going to make decisions and how and on
Yeah.
what basis. And if you have sort of worked through those basic systems, that basic muscle memory in advance, not only are you going to be able to move more quickly to address the
Hmm.
problem more thoughtfully and not make obvious uh, unforced errors,
Hmm.
you're also going to be able to have an opportunity mindset. And the magic that I've found and one of the things that I love about doing crisis work is that in almost every crisis, there is some kind of real opportunity hidden
Hmm.
within it.
Hmm.
And that's something that if you don't have a pre-structured plan, you're almost invariably going to miss out on.
The one that comes to my mind, and it's a long time ago, is the Tylenol crisis. And they came out because they reacted the way they reacted. That product never stopped, other than for the short period of time that they took it off the market. It it established a trust of that the management team would do the right thing at the right time. I think your point about opportunity, they did a massive they had a massive success out of a major crisis and they managed it so well. I think that what you're talking about is just valuable. Yeah.
I
The
think that's a great
opportunity.
example. That's a
Hmm.
great example of a success story because um, on the basis, of the situation,
Hmm.
it was existential. I mean, that could have been a company killer.
Hmm.
And Tylenol is here today and better than ever and bigger than ever.
Yeah.
And that was a moment. But I think the analogy of how that was handled is relevant to all kinds of crises, large and small,
Hmm.
and for big organizations and smaller ventures as well.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and I think one of the core pieces of it is something that I talk about a lot, which is one of the biggest opportunities in a crisis is that everyone is looking at you at that
Hmm.
moment. All of your stakeholders, all the people who matter, are looking right at you at that
Hmm.
moment. And because of the way the world is, they're expecting the worst. They're
Hmm.
just waiting for you to do something, suspicious or tricky or inauthentic or unthoughtful. And if you can actually step up and basically be your very best self, we all make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone
Hmm.
has accidents. Everyone has, at one time or another, hurt someone else, even,
Hmm.
right? And that's terrible and it's disappointing and it's sad, but it's real. And if you can, in those moments, step up and really show who you really are, the best version of yourself,
Hmm.
you can't buy that kind of branding.
No, 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 you can't. There's no messaging that you can put on a website. to say who you are other than that. That is awesome. Fantastic. Let's switch gears just a little bit. Why did you choose to go into business in the first place? What took you there?
Um, I guess I always had an entrepreneurial mindset. Always. I mean, even when I was a kid, I used to do all kinds of weird little
Hmm.
projects. When I was in college, I started some businesses, and I just really never stopped. And I don't really know why that is because my parents and my grandparents were all professionals,
Hmm.
teachers and engineers and those kind of jobs that fit into the like those that classic list of what are you going to be when you grow up.
Yeah, right.
And somehow I had the idea that I wanted to just create things. I guess you know, it was almost like a long time ago, there were these really um, funny series of old films. I think they were like in the 30s or something like that. And it was basically like this gang of kids who just took what they had and put on a show every time. And it was
Hmm.
I don't even remember what it was, but I think that kind of ethos and that kind of adventure of just, hey, here we are, a bunch of kids, let's put something together and create something fun. I used to do that in my neighborhood. I used to put on like theater performances,
Hmm.
directing all my neighbor kids in different kinds of shows, and had little, you know, different versions of the lemonade stand and
Hmm.
all that kind of thing. So I guess it's just kind of me.
When you started this business, was there a specific goal, personal goal to make money? Was it a goal just to do a process? Was it a goal to have an impact? What was the incentive behind it, behind this specific business?
Yeah, so my work in strategic advisory and communications really built out of needing those services myself
Hmm.
for projects that I was doing. So
Hmm.
going back to my 20s and 30s, I, for a variety of different reasons, dabbled in a lot of different kinds of fields
Hmm.
and projects and ventures.
Hmm.
Everything from had a business producing movie trailers. I advised I advised a some cultural festivals on some of their
Hmm.
activities, and I even produced an international music tour. And in the course of those different kind of projects that were just creative and fun and didn't really have a bottom line, major financial goal. They were more like, oh, these are cool opportunities. Let's do
Hmm.
this. Let's put on a
Hmm.
show, basically.
Hmm.
In the course of that, I had to hire public relations firms and marketing
Hmm.
firms and different kinds of business advisory. And working with those folks over many years, I just learned from the best.
Hmm.
And at a certain point, I came to a recognition that actually I really enjoyed that work. And it's interesting as over the years, different kinds of skill sets accrete and accumulate. Just the activity of deploying those skills is fun and interesting.
Hmm.
And so, I guess I inadvertently gained mastery in an area while I was doing other things.
Yeah, right, right. That makes sense to me. Perfect, perfect. Has there been any one particular challenge or hurdle you've come across that stuck out as more memorable than others along this journey?
Hmm. I mean, I think just business management
Mm,
is something that I had to be very intentional about.
yeah.
It wasn't something that originally was really that. A lot of my ventures when I was younger were really fly by the seat of your pants, figure it out as you're going.
Hmm.
And I guess when I was really young, I had a pretty hubristic, I would say, uh,
Hmm.
self. identity. I just thought I
Hmm.
knew, when you're young, you think you know it all. And as you get a lot of experience, you realize that there's so much you don't know and that you can learn.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think really a seismic shift was becoming really intentional about listening and about
Hmm.
learning and
Hmm.
about having a growth mindset.
That is a really, really important skill. Um, the more you learn you don't know. And knowing how to ask more people more questions helps an awful lot along the way. That is awesome. Um, when you look ahead, where do you see this business going? 5 years, 10 years? What do you see happening?
I mean, I think that there's only more need for this kind of work and this kind of
Hmm.
service and advisory. I mean, it's really interesting because for some of the, larger firms,
Hmm.
and I know this because I'm in conversations with leaders at a lot of different types of strategic advisory firms.
Hmm.
Um, they're really concerned about the advent and the impact of AI and different kinds of, new systems that can automate some of the work that they're doing.
Hmm.
And I think that even today, already, if someone wants to, even if there's a CEO of a company, like figure out, what they should do, a lot of them are just turning literally to ChatGPT and asking them, and ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever, tool you're using usually comes back with a very confident set of answers. But
Hmm.
what we're finding, I think what we're all learning right now is that LLMs, large language models, types of AI are great at surfacing different kinds of ideas and great for brainstorming and great for helping you shape and articulate your thinking and your communication, but they're not wise,
Hmm.
not yet. And so that piece of it, to really have a grounded truth in you know evaluating risks and opportunities and really understanding based on your own experience and the experience of others that you've worked with, you know what is going to work and what is probably not going to work as well. It might be, something that the predictive model is proposing that might have some truth in certain types of contexts, but out of context might be terrible advice. And
Hmm.
it's so confident in its recommendations and suggestions that it is very convincing. And I think that's an area where I think that the death of strategic advisory is probably premature.
I have a couple of attorney friends who talk once in a while about attorney or about legal advice from some of these LLMs, and to the extent of attorneys themselves getting lazy about doing their research and thinking through the merits of a specific situation, and maybe giving contract advice from ChatGPT that isn't quite exactly the right thing. It can be a
Yeah.
really interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is um, it's a substantial issue across a lot of different fields. So,
Hmm.
we've heard some, really horrible nightmare kind of stories about people using LLMs or generative AI chatbots for psychological guidance or personal guidance. I mean, that has led to, some of the worst kinds of outcomes. And and I think that, the same goes for a lot of different fields. Again, I think that if you're savvy in using the tool as it currently manifests itself and the tools as they're relevant, you can get a lot out of them. I use different types of AI all the time in my work, constantly. I mean, it's important, and it's been a huge boon and is a time saver, and
Hmm.
can be a brainstorming partner, and can accelerate a lot of different kinds of projects in different kinds of ways. But keeping an eye on where the technology is and what its limits are, is, I think, is really important. And I think all of us who are professionals who are engaging and using it need to recognize that our our analysis of what it can and can't do right now is very important, and that also may change in 6 months or a year once again, or tomorrow. It's moving very quickly.
I think that's, yeah, I had a conversation with somebody the other day who was using the concept that Google is going through a yellow pages moment. Once upon a time, we used yellow pages to find things. Now we use Google to find things. ChatGPT is starting to step into that place heavily now, and ChatGPT hallucinates. Um, so it's going to be really interesting to see how we evolve technology and how we evolve protocols through this evolution, shall we say. This is,
Yeah.
for those of us that remember the old technologies, this is a really interesting progression.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, I find it
Hmm.
very energizing, and I
Hmm.
love reading about it and learning from experts who are really on the front lines. And some of my clients
Hmm.
work in AI in different kinds of ways, fintech, sports tech, education technology. I mean,
Hmm.
a lot of areas where AI is front and center in a lot of the innovations and
Hmm.
also the calculations and
Hmm.
strategy. So
Hmm.
I'm involved in that all the time. I think also to your point about sort of historical evolution and non-obvious impacts. So I'm acquaintances with Craig Newmark, who invented Craigslist, great guy, and his invention, and he's someone who is truly like a conscientious, thoughtful, kind person.
Hmm.
Um, you know, killed classified ads.
Hmm.
Right. And
Hmm.
and what was the impact of that was that local newspapers all over the country suddenly had a massive loss of revenue. And
Hmm.
that is even today we're seeing the impact of that across our ecosystem of journalism. I mean, it's been really significant.
Hmm.
And I don't think of Craig as someone who in any way intended to do anything harmful to journalism by any
Nope.
means. Just the
Nope.
opposite. This is
Yep.
an area where I think he really cares a lot. Um, and I think there are other factors, with the newspaper business. That's not the only one. But it is really interesting to begin to just observe what are some of the fundamentals of different kinds of activities and businesses and parts of our culture that are, you know, inexorably going to face really, really significant change.
There is going to be an awful lot of evolution. Careers are going to evolve. I mean, well, let's go back to the yellow pages to Google. I mean, the profile of jobs is all different between those two eras, and that's, we're going to go through that again, and we're going to go through that again after that, and we're going to go through that again after that. We as a culture need to get used to evolution as a be flexible in our career paths, shall we say, be ready for change because we have no way around it. Um,
Yeah, well, one of the most impactful insights, um, significant, I would say, profound insights, came from the philosopher Nassim Taleb. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he wrote
no,
a
I'm
book
not.
called it's really interesting. So he wrote a book called Anti-Fragile. And the idea behind Anti-Fragile is that um, really, in short, resilience, the idea of having things come at you and figuring out a way to get through them is fine. But really, there's a level up beyond resilience, which is creating systems and facing dynamics in a way so that those challenges that hit you, those crises that hit you, those learnings that come, only strengthen your business and your operations and your activities. And that's a whole different way of structuring an operation or a project, is to recognize that, you know, dynamics are the operating system in which we are all working. There
Oh,
is no, like, you think status quo is no issues, and then some problem comes in and that's the outlier. No, problems are part of everything constantly. And if you recognize those as just part of the system and that you can use those intentionally to get stronger, to grow and to evolve, that's a really powerful strategy. And so I really recommend, you don't even need to read the whole book. There are a lot of books like that where I feel that the, the real significant and profound insight, once you see it, you kind of can't unsee it.
There was a time in my career, I was an engineer early in my career. There was a time along the way, it dawned on me, if I felt like things were going well and smooth and I knew what was going on, I had missed something. I had overlooked something.
Yeah.
Be ready.
Yeah, and whatever you think of Donald Rumsfeld,
Mhm.
his unknown unknowns, and it sounds kind of absurd, but it's actually
He's right.
really valid.
Hmm.
There are some things that you just not only are not expected, you never even imagined
Hmm.
that they were even within the realm of possibility. It wasn't even something that you even conceived of. And there are those all around us. I mean, I think there are very few people who would have imagined, a couple of years ago when ChatGPT came, how quickly that would change so much,
Hmm.
just change people's lives, change people's daily experience of reality almost.
Hmm. Hmm.
And and continue to create really really significant changes in our world and in so many dimensions, and that
Hmm.
just technology arrives and it can have really significant impacts. Other things can arrive and have very significant impacts. I always think about like well, we just had a huge winter storm, for example, right? And everyone's going about their business and doing the different things, and you have your hierarchy of priorities and to-dos, et cetera. And at a certain point, something comes, and suddenly there's a storm, and there's ice everywhere, and you literally can't get out of your house, right?
Hmm.
Suddenly, that wasn't something you were thinking about. That wasn't on your
Right.
priority list. But before you do anything else, you have to solve that
Hmm.
and you have to deal with that,
Hmm.
and that happens so often, not only in our lives but really throughout history.
Yes, it has. And going back to your point about resilience and stepping up from resilience, having a culture of adaptation and opportunistic approach. What can we make of this? It's a mindset. And when I think of business leaders, to my mind, one of their obligations once they start building a team is to build a culture not just of resilience and survival, but of advancement. What can we learn from this? Where can we take the next step forward? How can we profit from this? Okay, it might be a long-term profit, but how can our learning profit from this? Where can we take this? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that ethos can sometimes go in a slightly um, damaging direction. I think, like for example, in Silicon Valley, they're kind of developed this philosophy, which I think is adjacent, which is move fast and break things.
Hmm. Yeah.
And and I think that underlying that is this very same idea of you know try things. If it doesn't go the way you think, or if it causes a problem, then fix that, but don't slow down and just keep moving and keep growing and keep evolving as quickly as you possibly can. I think that that's fundamentally, a valuable approach, but of course, the idea of coming in and just being completely unheeding of consequences, um, and being literally intending on breaking things, without really thinking through how it will affect the people that matter and the systems that actually are useful and helpful. um, that can sometimes be a real miss.
So a screwdriver might be a better tool than a bulldozer.
Yeah, exactly. Or,
Hmm.
before you embark on something, it might be helpful for you to talk to some of the people who potentially would be impacted or
Yeah,
use it, or would care about it, and get some of their thoughts and feedback. I mean, there's lots of points of expertise that you can access, and it's very efficient in the long run to think through those things and to get those diverse opinions and information into your system so that you can make decisions that are going to be optimal.
fantastic, fantastic. Kind of back to you. If you were going to start a business like this over again today, knowing what you know now, so you've had time to learn and advance, um, is there anything you would do differently?
I mean, I guess you know, I um I just recognize that at each stage in my career and in my life, I'm working with the best information that I have accessible. And so I don't really have regrets about how I've done
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
It's just, it's a process of growing and learning. I don't think
Mm.
that, it's kind of to me, it's almost a fantastical idea to think, oh, if I could go back in time and tell me then to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, first of all, we've all seen read the stories and seen the movies where someone did that, and lots of unexpected things resulted. But I think that, the process of life is this, um, we know now what we didn't know before, and soon we'll know things that we don't know now.
We had to make those mistakes because it's part of the journey of learning our way to success.
Yeah, and I mean, and you can look back and say, wow, that really sent me in a bad direction for a period of time. But you are who you are in part, and you are where you are in part, because of that.
Hmm.
And without that, you might be less.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's a cultural, the phrase fail your way to success has relevance. But to your point about not breaking things without knowing the consequences, at least at the bulldozer scale, probably we want to be thinking, how can we test this
Yeah,
as opposed
yeah.
to wholesale change it?
Yeah,
Just,
I mean, I love there are so many things that I've learned and adopted in terms of how I think through these kinds of issues
hmm.
and venture and leadership. Um, One that I learned in the last, I would say, decade
Hmm.
was, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of the Heath brothers, but
No.
they've written a bunch of different interesting books. One is called Decisive,
Hmm.
and that's a good one. And Made to Stick is another good one.
Hmm.
And in I forget which book it was talked about, but basically they talk about this approach of starting a project called ooching, which
Okay.
absolutely love, which is rather than always create like a full business plan and a full like structure of like a new enterprise that you want to start, whatever the project is.
Hmm.
Maybe just find a little space, a little shallow end, and just
Hmm.
try it. Like
Hmm.
actually just do it.
Hmm.
Do it a little bit, and then
Test
get
it.
that initial feedback to see if, a lot of times, you might have a general idea that you think is brilliant, but without a little bit of testing the market, a little bit of feedback, you might suddenly realize, oh, this is completely non-viable, or wow, this is really taking off. And then how do I iterate it as I go? But I love that because it really uh it kryptonites that uh that pause that sometimes takes you from a really cool idea, a really exciting idea, to like a year later and you still haven't really done anything.
Yeah. Right. No, but that point is good. Small scale first. Test the market. Find out how it plays. Tweak it. Adjust it. Learn. Move on. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Awesome. So we've had some really good stuff here. There's some really good ideas that you've brought out. So thank you. Before we wrap up, let's hit it with a few rapid fire questions and see if we can have some fun with these.
Okay, I'll fasten my seatbelt.
Yeah, please. What is a key to success for you?
Curiosity.
I like it. I like it. If you and I were having coffee at the coffee shop down the street and somebody walked in talking to his friend about the new business that he was thinking about starting up, what's one piece of advice you would share with him?
Test the market.
Mhm. Yeah, I like it. You shared a few books, but is there any other one book that you would share that you think has had a real impact on how you've driven your business?
Well, I mean, I would definitely recommend that people become familiar with Taleb's work on anti-fragility.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
I was greatly helped by Atomic Habits. I think
Ah, yeah.
that's another really great book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's also uh, Habits of Highly Effective
Yeah,
People,
that's a
which
good
is,
one. Yeah.
classic. And I mean, there's so many. This
Yeah.
is, I think, that fundamentally for business, what I my sort of light bulb moment was when I was younger. I looked at that whole array of, you walk into a bookstore and you see the whole section of like business advice and self-help and those sections. And I used to really think, oh, that's just a bunch of snake oil. That's charlatans taking advantage of desperate people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is a measure of that out there.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
what I've learned over time is that, if you have the growth mindset, if you have the curiosity, have a curiosity practice.
Mm-hmm.
So make it intentional and think, what do I want to learn about? And then talk to other people about what they're reading, what's been helpful to them, and also, grab a few things that seem to be intriguing that come across your plate, or that you hear about, and read a little bit about it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if you go in and you've read a couple of chapters and it isn't resonating, that's fine. Put it to the side. I have
Mm-hmm.
so many books that I haven't finished.
Yeah.
But
Right.
then, amongst those, I've discovered insights and guidance that have truly been game changing for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. You've had a great journey. You've done a lot of stuff. You've had a lot of fun. You've had a lot of impact. What would you say you're most proud of in this journey?
Good relationships,
Mm-hmm.
relationships of trust built
Mm-hmm.
over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And um, like in my media relations work, for example, I mean, at this
Mm-hmm.
point, I I have relationships of trust, like deep relationships of trust built over years and years and years with journalists all over the world, literally hundreds of
Mm-hmm.
journalists all over the world, editors, reporters, bookers, all kinds of different people in the world of journalism, broadcast and print and online. And many of those people I've never even met in person. But I've some of them are like decades long relationships of deep, abiding trust, going through, very sensitive and confidential projects at different times,
Yeah.
and relying on them and them relying on me, and in lots of different ways, even in terms of like personal security. I've helped journalists get out of dangerous situations at
Dangerous.
different
Yeah.
times in my career. So
Mm-hmm.
that's in my professional work, and then in my life too, my friends, my loved ones. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
really what life is all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Following up on that, just for fun, if you had a magic wand and you could significantly improve one thing in your business today, what would it be?
That the people who really could benefit from my services, that they would all know it.
Perfect. Good. 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 Kind of going along with that, how can people who want to know more best get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can. you can just connect with me on LinkedIn. I love that. And or just go onto my website, strategymediapr.com, and see some of our services. And if it seems like it might be a match for what you're looking for, or if you're just curious, feel free to reach out to me. And then, it's always an open channel, and I love to help. And if I can't help you, I'll find someone who can.
Fantastic, fantastic. Kind of with that, what's most inspiring to you today?
I mean, we're living in a world where there's a lot of, pain, and there's a lot of suffering, and there's a lot of anxiety and fear for, very legitimate reasons. And
Hmm.
I think what inspires me right now is all the people who can find hope and can take action toward what they think is important and what they believe in and what they care about. Not stand on the sidelines. The people who are stepping up to engage the world, those
Hmm.
are the people that I really admire.
Fantastic, fantastic. It's been an awesome conversation. You've shared a whole bunch of really valuable insights and points, more than just about business itself, but also about life and conducting professional behavior along with it. So that's been fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing. And for all of you watching this show, come back and watch it again. Greg has shared a whole bunch of really good points. And so I would say watch this, come back and watch it again because there's a lot to absorb. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications every time a conversation like this drops. And thank you to everyone who joined us today, and a special thank you to Greg for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. It's been absolute pleasure.
Awesome.